After owning the PRX for 8 months, I decided to sell it. I thought and still do think that it's a great watch, but there was one big problem I had with it. In today's video, I'll tell you why I sold my PRX and why you should maybe consider buying something else. Okay, let's go back to the start. Just like you, I was encapsulated by the hype of the PRX. Everyone in the watch space was talking about it. You hear so much positivity and great reviews online that one would think that it's impossible to be a serious watch collector and not own one. I bought into this thought process. I had to see what all the hype was about. I only decided to dip my toe in. I only went for the quartz version. One, because it would save me $300, but also I wanted it to be a grab and go piece as I don't have many in my collection. And as the look is so sporty and casual, it's the type of watch you can just pick up no matter what you're wearing and it shouldn't look out of place. Now this was my first integrated bracelet watch, which is also something that has a ton of hype, especially with the recent releases of the IWC Engineer, Christopher Ward's The 12, and the Citizen Toyosa. The hype and constant releases of these types of watches just isn't slowing down. So clearly there's a huge market for these watches and brands are making good money from them. So why did I sell my TISSOT PRX? Well, there's actually a couple of reasons. One that can be avoided by you if you're thinking about buying one, and the other, one that I personally can't just get over and probably won't buy this style of watch again because of. Let's start off with the one that you can't avoid. Well, it comes down to the comfort. Although the TISSOT PRX is in fact a 40mm watch, it wears so much larger. This is down to the fixed end links that extend the lug to over 50mm, meaning that the watch actually wears closer to a 42mm watch rather than a 40. Now to you larger wristed enthusiasts out there, this of course isn't an issue, but to my small wrist gang, it really is something that you have to consider. Now I don't mind a bigger watch. I don't find myself purposely avoiding sizes, especially when a watch looks as good as the PRX does, but the wearing dimensions of the PRX are just plain odd. I mean, it's nice and thin and it's fairly lightweight for the size, but the 40mm case wears like a plate sometimes, which I absolutely don't mind on something like a dive watch. After all, that is a tool watch. I understand that size is a trade-off for its capabilities. However, with the PRX, it really doesn't need to have such a large and awkward case. It would have been so much better if the end links weren't fixed and it hugged the wrist a bit more. There are occasionally gaps on the edge of the wrist when I was wearing it, which is just a bit embarrassing, isn't it? Now I know what you're thinking. There's a 35mm option. Why don't you just go for that instead? Well, in hindsight, yes, I probably would have got the 35mm, but the 35mm is tiny. Again, I appreciate both large and smaller watches, especially when they have a purpose. 35mm watches, in my opinion, should be dress watches. Understated, elegant, and having the sole purpose of looking classy. A sports watch should be bigger, 38 to 40mm, which the PRX is, but as we know, it wears so much bigger. So unfortunately, the PRX comes in two sizes that are both just plain strange. One size is as large as a dive watch and the other smaller than most modern dress watches. So you have to choose between two sizes that don't really fit the purpose of the watch. Now I assume that if you have a small wrist, let's say around 6 inches and under, then the 35mm would probably fit very well. On the other hand, if you have a wrist size above 7 inches, then the 40mm probably wears well too. However, for the 6 to 7 inch wrists out there, I feel like we've been left out of the sizing of the PRX. If you do have a bigger wrist and own the 40mm, let me know in the comments what you think of the wearing experience because I'm very intrigued to know. Staying on sizing and the wearing experience, I encountered another big problem with the comfort of the everyday wear. Moving away from the case and now taking a look at the bracelet. Of course, the beauty of the PRX's angular and thin linked bracelet is clear to see. I still believe that the PRX has the best looking bracelet on an affordable Swiss watch. However, this is actually part of the problem. Tissot's elegant bracelet design features a butterfly clasp, which adds to the sleek and complete aesthetic of the taper of the bracelet. But this means that we don't get a standard watch clasp that has micro adjustment, meaning that small adjustments to find a good fit around the wrist isn't possible. Tissot does provide some half links, however not enough to be precise with the size. I found that one extra half link was too loose and one less was too tight. Typically this wouldn't be an issue, right? I would just wear the watch slightly loose, which is the style of wear with a sports watch anyway. But because of the extremely flat and rigid case, it meant that the watch has a ton of wrist wobble and found its way into uncomfortable positions around the wrist bone. This meant that I had to wear the watch slightly too tight, which doesn't help with the watch visually looking big on wrist either. And because the bracelet is so thin and lightweight, most of the weight of the PRX comes from the case of the watch, meaning that a snug fit is actually necessary as the weight isn't distributed evenly across the piece. This is a problem that could be avoided by either a standard watch clasp or switching out the strap for something else. And that's where we get into the second big problem with the TISSOT PRX. Again, the end links are an issue. Because of the integrated bracelet, we don't get a conventional lug opening. Instead, we have a small slot on the back where the bracelet attaches to the case, meaning that we only have a few options regarding what we can wear the watch with. We can either stick with the factory bracelet, but as discussed, this didn't work for me, or we can buy a leather strap from TISSOT or another third-party offering where the strap is specifically made for the unique lugs of the watch. However, these offerings are fairly expensive and our options are very limited, especially if you go with an official TISSOT strap. They are only offering a crocodile grain option that, in my opinion, doesn't match the style of the watch at all. Now, as the watch is becoming older, more third-party options are becoming available and the prices are getting better, but the choices are still so limited in comparison with traditional lugs. Finally, you can pick up a strap adapter for the PRX, which converts the original end links into a more traditional size. However, this looks a bit odd. It adds to the overall lug-to-lug measurement and again, leads to an odd wearing experience, meaning that enthusiasts like myself, who enjoy collecting different straps and having fun switching up the styles of watches, are limited by choice. For every watch in my collection, I have around 10 different strap options. This allows a watch to be freshened up. If I wear a watch on the same strap for weeks on end, I just get a bit bored. Then I'll start thinking about buying another watch. However, I found that when swapping the strap out every week or so, I get so much more enjoyment and fulfillment from my watches. I no longer feel the urge to sell a watch and try something new. I actually get just as much enjoyment from certain straps and finding good combinations as I do from specific watches. Weird, I know, but it's true. This also helps dressing up or dressing down a watch, meaning I can throw a watch on a rubber strap and have a super casual combination, or I can throw it on a leather and use it as a more dressy piece. As discussed, this simply is not possible with the PRX. When I picked up my PRX around 8 months ago, the third-party strap options were very limited. There were only a few for sale and they were all very expensive. I'm talking over $100 for a single strap. That meant I had to stick with the factory bracelet because nothing from my strap collection worked with the PRX, often meaning that I reached for a more traditional watch in my collection where I could swap the strap out to match what I was wearing that particular day. So, should you avoid the PRX? Well, I still think it's a great watch, don't get me wrong. The finishing, the taper of the bracelet, and the attention to detail is beautiful on the TISSOT, and I still do believe that it's one of the best looking watches for a few $100s. But you should absolutely consider the wearing experience when picking one up. My best advice to you is visit an authorized dealer and try the PRX on. Try on both the 40mm and the 35mm in store. Even if you intend on buying it online, don't feel bad just going into a store and asking to try it on. Just bear in mind though, if you can't find a good fit with a factory bracelet, your options are very limited, and this is why I sold my TISSOT PRX. I'll likely dip my toe in the integrated bracelet world again, but this time I'll either make sure that I can absolutely get a good fit, or it's very easy to swap out the straps for something more conventional. If you enjoyed this video and want some affordable watch suggestions, be sure to watch my video here on screen on the 10 best watches under $100.